Mathematics might explain how planets form, but not everything. Surely the evolution of life was still mysterious, still special.
You know, people think that mathematics is complicated. Mathematics is the simple bit. It's the stuff we can understand. It's cats that are complicated. I mean, what is it in those little molecules and stuff that make one cat behave differently to another, or that make a cat? You know, how do you define a cat? I have no idea.
Yet in 1970, John Conway showed that even though life may be baffling in its complexity, the complexity arises from simple rules. The evidence came from a game whose results were so unpredictable that they called it life. Life had the most basic of ingredients, a board with a grid of squares filled with counters. The fate of each counter was governed by rules. Unlike our universe, there were just 3.
I had this idea that if you had simple rules, but not too simple, then probably complexity would just develop. We tinkered with the rules and played around and hoped something interesting would happen. And eventually we settled on a particular set of rules that we did. They were sort of slightly modelled on real life.
The 3 rules they arrived at were the equivalents of birth, death, and survival. What would happen to any particular square depended on its neighbours. An empty square with exactly 3 counters around it would give birth, so a new counter is added to the board. Any counter with too few neighbours would die of isolation and be removed from the board. A counter with too many neighbours would die of suffocation and also be removed. And any counter with just 2 or 3 neighbours would survive, staying exactly as it was. With only these most basic rules, unpredictable and complex patterns evolved. The board seemed to produce creatures from nowhere. Creatures that crawled. Creatures that fired out smaller creatures. Pumps that looked like a primitive heart. Creatures that spewed out an endless chain of offspring.
My little life game is surprising because from the simple rules one wouldn't expect to find things that move in a sort of purposive manner and surprise us. That's, I suppose, why we call it life. It mimics life to that tiny extent. Like a little mini-universe.
Science dismantled the notion of life created with a purpose. In this rational universe, there's no need for a creator.
There was no design in life, no design whatsoever. The rules of my life game are tiny, trivial things. And the rules, you know, of the real universe are so hard that we've been trying to understand them for thousands of years and, you know, haven't finished yet by any means. So one can't really expect too much, but already these tiny trivial laws exhibit interesting behavior. It proved an important point, which is that a system like this could have some of the properties of the real universe. So in a way, its design was copied, but in a very trivial way, from real-life biology. And so it's rather nice that, you know, correspondingly, it became a kind of artificial biology.